And we're live yet again on a Friday afternoon this time. Scott Stevens here with a little bit of weather to share with you. Crazy conditions continuing on mostly in Asia. That's where at least the information that has come across my desk. Used to use Twitter for quite a bit of things, but for some reason their weather feed has gotten ancient to where they're feeding stories 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 days old. So there's something that is just wonky. Wonky, and I know it's not a scientific term, but other words I probably shouldn't use to be associated with kind of what's going on with Twitter at this point in the game. They're just something's wrong. So hey Vicky, good to see you on there this afternoon. My voice still feeling the effects of our practice. We're working on a project that's kind of well, not kind of. It's going to be very relevant to what's going on in the world and some of the challenges that we're all going to be facing. Some degree, some are in view, and some of these issues that we want to bring up and share with you, not quite visible to the population at large, but although we all sense that something is up. And in a big way. This is no small game that we're all playing. Let's start with this and head on over there. It's Asia, Asia, Asia. So much happens in Asia. The political struggle is happening in Asia. The weather, climate disasters of magnitudes that we don't see stateside simply because we don't have the population density that they do. 13 million affected, 771 dead. Those widespread floods continue across India as the monsoon is in place. The same story with China. And then there's a whole lot of territory between India and China with Laos and Myanmar and Vietnam and so forth and so on. All of those territories inundated with this kind of rain. And we're not done. The monsoon has a few weeks yet to go. So the end of this story is not in sight. Cold happening in South Australia and Tasmania, several inches of snow. These are locations surrounded by water, unlike the North American, European, and Asian continents where we do have a little sliver of water up with the Arctic, and then we've got ice cap. Down there, it's just all open ocean, and a lot of it in the South Sea until you get to Antarctica. But it is winter, and we've seen some pretty impressive weather events headed on in there. We'll look at that in just a moment. We'll start with the Atlantic, where we are looking at one area of remotely disturbed weather. The risk or potential for development remains rather minuscule, even out of the long term. It just doesn't look like it's going to be in favorable conditions. South of Mexico, this disturbance has a little better opportunity to get it all wound up as it heads into the Pacific. But weather-wise, over here, I have not refreshed this yet. Not a lot of stories, as I mentioned. Weather-wise, they're just Twitter's not feeding them. They're not happening. Whatever it is, they're just not there. Chris Martinez, and this is something we'll talk about remotely or in a moment. A lot of chilly weather to begin August in the middle part of the nation with showers, thunder showers. The heat has been into South Texas or into the western U.S., which would be a continuation of the heat that Arizona saw with record highs. Tucson, Phoenix with average record high for July was almost 100 degrees. Tucson a little bit cooler at just shy of 92 degrees. And then what is unusual, preliminary, unfiltered. I love unfiltered data, guys. Once you start filtering and homogenizing, it just gets ugly. Local storm report counts by National Weather Service office, and this from the beginning of January through 7 August. And that Wichita area reporting no tornadoes. That is unprecedented. Much more in the Southwest. These tend to be early or late season events like November or February, March, maybe even in early April as we see them over the deep South. But Wichita, which, Dorothy and Toto and so forth and so on, just none. So that is kind of unusual, and that's about it for the day. Stateside, if we go to China, then we can see all kinds of videos. And same with India and this region where it is just unsettled. And then this deep storm in Australia responsible for the snow, and we're likely to see some very chilly weather over the next couple of days as this storm then departs. And then there's kind of another one, not so much on its heels, but nevertheless, cool, dry air will push inland through the continent. And I'm going to animate this. But this is another region. We get into Asia, Western Asia, East or Western Russia as well. Just a continuation of the chilly weather in this spot. So this is a big breadbasket. There's a lot of crops that are grown here, and we're already seeing temperatures. Then even over into Siberia, we're getting unprecedented incursions of very, very chilly air, which will bring widespread frost in those regions within the week. So an end of the growing season is not far at hand for those folks. All right, back stateside, no tornadoes. That is a miracle, Vicky, for Wichita, Kansas. Of all locations, you would think that would be their count there would be at the highest. Maybe, maybe not. Good to see you guys on there. It's kind of a pleasant Friday stateside. Not a lot of severe weather, even the thunderstorms that have popped up in West Texas and New Mexico. Nothing too severe. And then a stationary front draped along the eastern seaboard, providing them with showers and thunder showers. Slow movers. We saw some flooding in North Carolina last night. They'll likely see a bit of a repeat from that. But I want to go out into the Pacific. Now we're seeing seasonal satellite interferences. The sun, the satellite, and the Earth all kind of get into an alignment, so we see some static. But what's out here is a preponderance, just a lot of contrails. And if you know what you're looking for, you can begin to see how they not necessarily engineer the weather, because I believe they use contrails more for grip on how you would get an electromagnetic field to resonate the water molecule. And then once you do that, you can begin to, vibrate it and then hold it. But we can see, like a crow's foot, a whole bunch of trails right in there. And if we kind of roll this back and forth, you can see how they can spread out. And much like a chalk line across a river, you can see where the undulations are. You can see the portions of the atmosphere that are rising, others that are falling. And this all becomes incredibly useful data for meteorological forecast models. It allows electromagnetic technology some kind of resonance, some ability to hold and grip and ionize and play with the atmosphere. And this always happens on inbound storms. It's just how it works. So it's an amazing technology that we see not the direct the direct footprints of, but kind of like the byproduct of. All right, I'm showing you this one simply for fires. North of Grand Junction, Colorado, a nice plume of smoke showing up there. It looks like we've got, let's kind of zoom in there, at least two parts to this fire as we're in the heat of the day. And then also another one, it looks like Blaine County, Idaho, just south of Sun Valley, the Haley area, north of Twin Falls up here. So, it's fire season. It just is this time of year. Rains in the southwest in New Mexico. I don't see any warnings here. I see them back in the tri-state area, Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, in the Delmarva. It's slow-moving thunderstorms, and then the green indicating that we've got some flash flood watches, and those simply because there's a lot of rain there. The ground is already soaked because they dealt with 5, 6, 7, 8 inches worth of rainfall from Isaiah earlier in the week, and these are very slow-moving storms. So heads up for those folks there. Again, if you're driving out there and you see water running across the road and somebody else makes it through, doesn't always mean you can. I know a lot of people do it and they make it. It's just the one time it doesn't and your car goes sideways. And it only takes 4 or 5 inches of water running at about 10 miles an hour to move a regular sedan. You just lose your traction with the road, and once you start to move, it's very, very difficult to stop that action. So temperatures hot in Texas, the Panhandle of Texas, once again, Amarillo in the triple digits. The heat into west, what would that be? Scottsbluff, Nebraska at 103, Rapid City between about 101 or 87 as you get up towards Custer with some thunder showers up there. But fairly seasonable for this time of year. No intense heat in California. Again, nothing out of seasonable levels, with humidity just being drawn up north. That moisture is headed north into Canada. They've had a nice wet summer. I'll kind of look at some of the crop conditions because we're getting close to harvest of some of the things up there. And on the whole, the risk we've seen stateside from that has been drought, especially in the west, especially once you get west and into Colorado and all the way to California. The red is where we're in an exceptional drought. Some parts of Iowa have begun to dry out very quickly as well. And crazy enough, with all of the showers that are in place, they've continued to miss these storms up in this region. To the south and to the north, the water has been plenty, but there are just a few spots that just cannot seem to catch a break and get some of those rainfalls. York, Pennsylvania, so says Karen. The clouds that have been racing through York, PA today. Lots of flooding here. Not China-like, but they've overflowed the banks and flooded the roads due to the volume of rain. And if you've, like we mentioned earlier, if you've already gotten soaked, it does not take much to push things out of the banks. Where I'm in Colorado, we're deep in the drought and could probably handle a 2-3 inches worth of rain fairly easily, provided it didn't come in 30 minutes or an hour. It took a day or two to get here. We could handle that. All right, where are we over the next 10 days? Temperatures for between 7 August to 17 August, warm through the southwest, very warm eastern Canada, and then cool western Canada, and then kind of intermixed through California. It really depends on the sea flows, the ocean flows, and so forth. So that's kind of the outlook precip-wise. Similar, where we see the blues and greens at or above normal moisture, the browns and reds drier than normal. So very dry through Texas, along the Gulf Coast, and especially into Florida, where we are deep into thunderstorm season, where occasionally, the middle part of August, they have tropical storms that move through, and that kind of biases the climatological records to the wet side. And if you don't have a storm on the horizon or anticipated to come in, then those numbers tend to look a little bit dry. In the west, it's zeros, because this time of year they get zero. Nothing falls, so you don't get even farther behind. And then northern Canada, remember we saw that humidity racing north. This map right here, that humidity coming north into Canada kind of shows up here as eventual rainfall in those far northern prairie provinces. Record temperatures, we'll end it with that because my voice will hold out. Just probably the northeast, it looks like. Heck, even Maine, Caribou, 90 degrees out on Tuesday, which would get close to a record, and then the heat returns to Roswell, El Paso, New Mexico, and Texas towards the middle of next week. Otherwise, nothing out of the ordinary, too exceptional, and that is a great way to go into the weekend, where we can just kind of have steady as she goes, nothing too wicked, nothing too crazy, and then you can plan your outdoor activities. Maybe a little dash of rain, maybe not, just depends on your location. I'm used to sitting in one spot and being able to focus for, hey, say here, and then it's easy to throw out a forecast rather than going a weather channel where it's kind of widespread and trying to cover all that territory. Sky-wise, the comet's probably still visible, but with requiring of a pair of binoculars. And then next week, and probably even tonight, because we don't have much of a moon, the Perseid meteor shower begins to ramp up later part of the evening, but certainly post midnight. We're getting some of those brighter meteors visible from that Perseid meteor shower, and this should be an exceptional viewing opportunity between now and the end of next week, as they'll peak usually on the 11th or 12th, which would become Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. And it's always my favorite meteor shower is the Perseid. So that's coming up. So if you just happen to be outside walking from the house to the car, take a moment, just look up, see what's there. That's when we always find something, because if we're not looking, we're not going to discover. Kind of basic, isn't it? All right, thanks for stopping by, guys. And yeah, Vicky, I do too. And you don't need binoculars for those either. You just need to have the neighbors or yourself turn off your lights and then just get into the lawn chair and enjoy the cool weather. Where I am, for once, we're mosquito free this time of year, and that is just a godsend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, back to the exit. And I'll see you on Monday. We'll look at another perspective at 6 o'clock, and then a check of weather, see what's happened over the weekend at 5 o'clock Mountain Time. Hey, everybody, have a great weekend and keep looking up.